Hello everyone, and welcome back to True Scars. Today's story comes from an online forum where people ask, "Am I the one in the wrong?" A user named Maya shared a heart-wrenching post, and the question she asks is a tough one. Am I the jerk for cutting ties with my mother after she chose my toxic ex-boyfriend over her own child? Maya is a 35-year-old woman who spent 2 years in a draining relationship with a man named Leo. She describes him as incredibly controlling and narcissistic. Leo also had a young son from a previous relationship. Now, despite all the red flags Maya saw, her parents absolutely worshipped both Leo and his boy. They treated the child like their very own grandson, taking him on vacations and having him over during school breaks. When the manipulation and jealousy finally became unbearable, Maya ended the relationship. Her parents were completely heartbroken. In a truly surreal scene, she had to explain her reasons for leaving with Leo sitting right there in the room with her parents. And in that moment, he had the audacity to tell her and her parents that his toxic behavior was her fault because their intimacy wasn't good enough. Even after hearing that, Maya's mother, who was deeply bonded with Leo's son, demanded to stay in touch. She even offered to keep babysitting the boy during holidays. At first, Maya didn't object. She felt the kid deserved a stable environment, especially since Leo wasn't a very engaged father. She even felt bad enough to let Leo stay in the condo they co-owned for a few months while he finished an apprenticeship. But things eventually turned ugly. The police had to get involved, and Leo finally moved out in mid-2023 to live with a new girlfriend. They haven't spoken since, which was a massive relief for Maya. However, everything imploded during a family dinner last spring. Out of nowhere, her mother told Leo's little boy, right in front of Maya, that she was planning to invite Leo and his new girlfriend over for a visit. Maya was completely blindsided. When she asked her mother why on earth she would invite her harasser into her home, her mother just looked at her and said, "I'm doing it for the sake of the child. We need to keep things civil." Fast forward to December. Maya went to her parents' house for the holidays and noticed that her mother still had framed photos of Leo on the mantle. She bit her tongue and didn't say anything. But during dessert, the young boy asked Maya's father if he was going to open the bottle of wine Leo had sent as a gift. Her dad replied, "No, I'm saving that to share with your father when he comes over to the house." That was the final straw. Maya stood up from the table, shaking with hurt, and walked away. When her parents followed her to see what was wrong, she finally let it all out. She told them how devastating it felt to watch them prioritize her toxic ex over their own daughter's mental and physical safety. Her dad immediately looked ashamed and gave her a sincere apology. Her mother, however, doubled down. She told Maya, "This is my home, and I have the right to invite anyone I love into it." Maya looked her right in the eye and said a home should be a sanctuary, and since she no longer felt safe there, she was leaving. She hasn't stepped foot in that house since. Later, her mother sent her a long letter. There was no apology, just a demand that Maya go back to therapy. When Maya confronted her in person one last time, her mom spent 20 minutes just repeating the same line, "I can welcome whoever I want into my house." The situation spread to the rest of the family. Maya's aunt, her mother's twin sister, asked if she was coming to her Christmas party. When Maya asked if Leo would be there, her aunt gave her the exact same line as her mom. So, Maya cut her off as well. Now, she only speaks to her father, but even he keeps telling her to just get over it. She's starting to second-guess herself, wondering if she's wrong for going no contact over this. In my opinion, absolutely not. Maya isn't being petty, she's protecting her peace. It seems like her mother is so desperate for a grandchild that she is willing to side with an abuser just to keep that connection. It's incredibly selfish. And while her dad apologized, telling her to just get over it now only minimizes the trauma. Let's see what the community had to say. One user wrote, "Not the jerk. It was inappropriate for your parents to get that attached to a child from a 2-year relationship anyway. They're treating a stranger's kid like blood while disrespecting their own daughter." Maya actually responded to this, adding a crucial detail, My mom is very frustrated that I chose to be child-free. I've had my tubes tied, and I think she decided to adopt a grandchild through my ex because she couldn't get one from me. Another commenter added, "Your mother overstepped. While it's kind that you wanted the boy to have stability, that was never your burden to carry. You don't have to set yourself on fire just to keep everyone else warm." One piece of advice really cut through the noise for Maya. A user pointed out that because she didn't establish ironclad boundaries from day one, her family never learned to take her needs seriously. They argued that by staying in contact with her father, she was leaving the back door unlocked. Even though he apologized, he's still acting as a shield for her mother's behavior, playing both sides to keep the peace. Reading that was a splash of cold water for Maya. A moment of total clarity. She realized it was never her job to manage their feelings or facilitate their relationship with a child who isn't their relative. She has to develop a backbone of steel to truly heal. The conversation then shifted to her father's role. Many people suggested it might be time to add him to the no-contact list. It's a painful thought. He asked for her forgiveness, and she's not ready to throw that away, but the rope is getting very thin. Being a peacekeeper often means staying silent while the victim gets hurt. Maya has started taking steps to protect herself. She refused to give her father her new address to prevent surprise letters from her mother. And she made it clear that if her mom ever uses his WhatsApp to reach her again, she'll block him too. Another user shared something that really hit home. They said their parents were almost identical, and they know how isolating it feels when your own family gaslights you. They ask you to just get over it until you doubt your own reality. Then they asked a chilling question, would she be doing this if the assault had been physical? Just because the damage was mental and emotional doesn't make it any less of a violation. Her mother is choosing to welcome an offender into what should be her sanctuary. That isn't normal. It's a betrayal. Looking back, Maya recalls sitting in a therapist's office years ago with her family. But the entire focus was on the explosive relationship between her father and her brother. She felt like a ghost in the room, her needs completely invisible then, just as they seem to be now. She's been spiraling, wondering if there's any bridge left to save. Since her mother was the one who suggested therapy, Maya is considering calling her bluff. What if she turns the tables and says, "Fine, let's go, but we go together"? She wants to see if her mother is willing to sit with a professional and explain why it's okay to host her daughter's abuser for dinner. Finally, user named Lilo pointed out something that chilled Maya to the bone. She said that her mother is gambling with her future. She is choosing a child she has no biological tie to, a boy who will grow up and likely lose contact over the daughter who would have been by her side forever. She's trading a lifelong bond for a temporary fix for her grandma fever. Lilo suggested that if her mom refuses therapy, Maya should work with a counselor to draft a formal, high-impact letter. Then, deliver it and say, "I followed your advice. I sought professional help, and this letter is the professional consensus on our relationship." It would force her mother to finally decide, is her loyalty to Leo worth losing her daughter for good? Because right now, her behavior isn't just stubborn, it's emotional warfare. Waking up this morning to a sea of support was a feeling I just can't describe. For so long, I'd spent nights lying awake, wondering if I was the one being dramatic, or if I was just too sensitive like my dad always says. I've talked to my friends, my cousin, and while they've been my absolute rocks, there is always that tiny voice in your head whispering that they were just being nice because they love you. But hearing from thousands of strangers, people who have no reason to lie to me, has changed everything. It's like the fog has finally lifted. Seeing this situation through your eyes helped me realize that this isn't just a family disagreement. This is a toxic environment where my safety was being sold for the sake of a comfortable lie. I finally have the validation I needed to stand tall. I am not the villain in this story for wanting to be safe. I am just a woman who finally learned how to value herself more than a mother who refuses to see the truth. This whole situation has become a data-gathering mission for me. My father, who is 67, is still pushing his peace at any cost agenda. He calls me constantly, insisting that the family needs to just sit down for dinner and act like everything is fine. He told me that my mother, who is 61, is deeply offended. Apparently, she didn't appreciate her daughter telling her how to run her own household. He claims she just doesn't understand why I'm being so distant. I didn't hold back. I told him that unless she's suffering from early onset Alzheimer's, there's no way she doesn't understand. She is simply refusing to look in the mirror. I had to remind him, for the 100th time, that she made her choice the second she chose my ex-boyfriend over her own child. It's not just me who thinks this is insane. Everyone I speak to is horrified by her behavior. Then, my dad tried a new tactic. He told me that family and friends don't understand why I'm acting this way toward my parents. That was a clear threat to my reputation, so I gave him one of my own. I told him that if he continues to play dumb and paint me as the villain to our social circle, I will take this story public. I'll let the whole world judge their hospitality toward my abuser. I don't know if that will finally turn the lights on in his head, but I'm done being the family's secret scapegoat. While I've been debating the merits of family therapy, a piece of the puzzle fell into place, and it's a devastating one. A few months ago, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD. When the doctor told me, I broke down in tears of pure relief. It finally made sense why I struggled so much, but that relief quickly turned into white-hot anger. You see, my brother was diagnosed early in life. He got the tutors, the therapy, and all the support my parents could buy. Meanwhile, when I was struggling in school, I was just called lazy. At 21, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, another thing my mother had dismissed for years as me just not trying hard enough. But here is the absolute kicker. When my mother heard about my new ADHD diagnosis through my dad, she didn't call to apologize. Instead, she hijacked my dad's phone and sent me a voice message in our private chat. She told me, completely dismissively, that this wasn't news. She claimed I had been tested at age 6 and that I shouldn't make such a fuss about it now. I felt the last remaining thread of my trust just snap. She knew. She knew I was struggling for 30 years, and she chose to let me believe I was just less than while she poured all her resources into my brother. To realize that she hid my own medical history from me, only to now prioritize my abuser's comfort over my safety. It was the last straw. I'm now at a crossroads. Some of you say that if my dad is telling me to get over it, he has already chosen a side. I think he's just a man who is terrified of conflict, but his cowardice is making him an accomplice to my mother's cruelty. He is struggling to see the full picture because the full picture is just too ugly for him to handle. I've started building a wall they can't climb. I've officially refused to give them my new address. I won't have them showing up uninvited, and I won't have my mailbox filled with her gaslighting letters. I am protecting my peace with everything I have left. Whether therapy can fix a lifetime of being the forgotten child or if no contact is the only way to survive, I'm still figuring that out. But for the first time in 35 years, I'm finally putting myself first. Part of me still hesitates, and I find myself wondering if I'm just making excuses to keep a door open. It's incredibly difficult to cut ties with a father who has apologized and validated my pain, even if his actions don't always match his words. Honestly, I suspect he might be struggling with undiagnosed ADHD himself, which might explain why he seems so overwhelmed by all this chaos. My dad keeps insisting that my ex, Leo, has never actually stepped foot in their house since the breakup. But here's the problem. I don't know if I can trust him anymore. Is he telling me the truth, or is he just saying whatever it takes to lure me back to the Sunday dinner table? And even if Leo hasn't walked through their front door yet, the fact remains that they offered him the invitation. The intent to prioritize him over my safety was already there. As I've mentioned before, I chose a child-free life and had my tubes tied years ago. I actually love kids. I work with them every day, and I welcomed Leo as son into my life with nothing but love. But my mother has always been obsessed with the idea of being a grandmother. I always told her that if she wanted grandbabies, she'd have to look to my brother, not me. Now, It's clear she's using this boy to fulfill that grandma dream at any cost. She's developed this strange savior complex, acting like she's rescuing the child from his own home, while completely ignoring the daughter she's supposed to be protecting. She knew exactly who Leo was. I didn't just tell her about his violence, I showed her the physical evidence. I showed her the marks on the bed frame and the hole he kicked into the door during one of his rages. She saw the proof of his instability with her own eyes, and she still chose him, and Leo. He's still the same master of manipulation. I heard that he's been keeping his son away from his new girlfriend, likely so he can keep the holidays his by sending the boy to my parents. It's a calculated move to keep his hooks in my family. Just a few months ago, I was contacted by another woman who had briefly dated him. She felt something was wrong and tracked me down on social media. She told me that Leo claimed he was emotionally spiraling because his mother had recently passed away. It was a total lie. I checked her social media, and she was posting photos of her lunch that same afternoon. When I showed my dad the messages, he finally stopped doubting me, but I have no idea if he ever had the courage to tell my mother. It has taken me over 2 years to rebuild my life from the wreckage Leo left behind. I have finally found a real partner, a man who is caring, protective, and actually knows the meaning of the word respect. For years, every time I tried to stand up for myself, my family made me feel like I was the problem. But reading your perspectives has finally given me the permission I didn't know I needed. My feelings are valid. Stepping back from a toxic family doesn't make me a bad person, it makes me a survivor. I'm choosing my new life over their old lies. And on a completely different note, because sometimes life is just bizarre, I have a story from work I just had to share. I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I have a coworker, we'll call her Chloe, who is also in her early 20s. Like the title says, Chloe has this incredibly unsettling habit. She speaks in a full-on baby voice. When I first started at this firm, Chloe was deathly quiet. She wouldn't even look at me. I get it. Being the new person is always a bit awkward. But since our desks are right next to each other, I didn't want to spend 8 hours a day in a wall of silence. I started small, complimenting her outfits or her desk decor, just trying to break the ice. Finally, I got my foot in the door. We started having actual conversations, and I thought the awkwardness was over. That was until the day the voice started. At first, she just dropped a sentence in this high-pitched, infantile tone. I genuinely thought she was making a joke that I just didn't catch, so I gave a nervous little laugh and went back to my spreadsheets. I figured it was a what-time thing. Oh, how wrong I was. Thank you all for walking this path with me. Your support and insight have meant the world. I'm standing by my boundaries now, even if it means my parents end up on the no-contact list for good. I was so wrong. Now, it's a daily thing. At least once a day, my coworker Chloe drops her professional act and starts talking like a toddler. It's gone way past quirky and is now officially making my skin crawl. She'll come over to my desk, use that voice, and then give me these strange, lingering stares before walking away. She has even started waiting for me in the break room so we can go to lunch at the exact same time. The breaking point happened recently. I was having a normal, professional conversation with another colleague near the coffee machine. Chloe walked up to grab a cup, stopped dead in her tracks, and just stared at us. Then, she leaned in and whispered in that high-pitched baby voice, "Can I play?" She let out a tiny giggle and just drifted away. My other coworker was absolutely stunned. We both just stood there, laughing awkwardly because we didn't know how else to react. So, am I overreacting if I tell her to stop? It's making the workplace feel unprofessional and, frankly, a little creepy. My take is, you are definitely not overreacting. This isn't a speech impediment. It's a conscious choice she's making to behave this way in a professional environment. Setting a boundary here is perfectly reasonable. You can be kind but firm, something like, "Hey Chloe, I'd prefer if we kept our conversations professional." If she ignores that and keeps up the act, it might be time to have a quick chat with HR. The staring and following you to lunch is starting to border on harassment. The community had some interesting theories. One person asked for clarification. Are we talking about a soft Ariana Grande style voice, or literal goo goo gaga baby talk? Because if it's the latter, that is beyond strange. It's actually a bit gross for an office setting. Another person shared a similar experience. I dealt with this in high school. Back then, I was too shy to say anything. But if I were you, I'd just ask her directly with as much kindness as possible. Hey, I've noticed you use a different voice sometimes. Is there a reason for that? Someone else suggested a more direct approach. Just look her in the eye and ask, why are you talking to me like a baby? Sometimes, calling out the behavior directly is the only way to start a real dialogue and make it stop. One user pointed out that HR exists for a reason. What started as a weird quirk was quickly turning into a hostile work environment. At the very least, a supervisor should have been notified. Generally, the community was on my side. I wasn't overreacting. I was just trying to do my job in a bizarre situation. So, I finally worked up the courage to confront Chloe. I pulled her aside and asked to speak in the break room. My heart was pounding as I asked her directly, why do you speak in a baby voice whenever you ray around me? Instead of an apology or an explanation, she just burst out laughing. And I don't mean a polite giggle. She was laughing so hard she started snorting. She eventually caught her breath and walked out, only to return with our other coworker. Both of them doubled over in hysterics. It turns out, the whole thing was a prank. Because I was the new hire back in August, they wanted to see how long I would last before I finally cracked. I stood there, forced to smile and laugh along, but internally, I was mortified. It took me months to realize I was the punchline of a long-running joke. Listen, if you didn't find the joke funny, then it wasn't a prank, it was just mean. A prank is only successful if everyone is laughing at the end. In this case, your coworkers spent months intentionally making you feel uncomfortable and crazy just for their own amusement. That's not a bonding exercise. It's a red flag. I'd be very careful about who I trust in that office moving forward. To wrap things up on a lighter note, let's look at a clever piece of parenting from a user named Courage29. She lives with her husband, who works from home, and their teenagers. She works a high-stress job with long hours, but she actually enjoys cooking when she gets home. The deal was simple: she cooks, and the rest of the family handles the cleanup. The problem? Her family is incredibly messy and has a high tolerance for filth. She'd come home exhausted, only to find a kitchen so dirty she had to clean it for 45 minutes before she could even start a meal. Nagging didn't work. Screaming didn't work. It just spiked her stress levels. So, she changed her strategy. One evening, she ate dinner at work, came home, sat on the couch, and opened a book. When the family eventually started circling the kitchen asking what was for dinner, she calmly replied, "I'm not sure. I can't really do much in a kitchen that looks like this," and went right back to her reading. Because it got too late for a real meal, the family was forced to eat plain toast for dinner. They were disgusted, but the message was received loud and clear. Now, when she walks through the door, the kitchen is spotless and the dishwasher is already humming. That's not petty revenge, that's a masterclass in setting boundaries and teaching your family how to contribute. That brings us to the end of today's stories. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around. If you enjoyed these deep dives into family and workplace drama, I've linked a couple more videos on the screen right now that I think you'll love. If you don't have time to watch another one right now, be sure to save them to your watch later list. And before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.